Welcome in, everyone, to the first day of the InkTV Resurgence League. So excited to have you here on InkTV Splat. My name is Shiny Hunter Zach. I'll be helping y'all out as the host for today, but I, of course, am not alone. And joining me are two fantastic analysts who are going to be bearing the brunt of the weight, I would say, in terms of analytical knowledge here. We'll pass it over to Magic 8 Ball first. And Magic, would love to get your thoughts on the journey up to this point so far, and of course, what you're looking forward to today.
A lot of upsets happened that we weren't expecting. A lot of good stories, Cinderella runs, and crazy Game 5 sets, including some wonky things that happened in Qualifier 2, but we can forget about that for the time being. It was a long road, but the 8 teams that we have here are definitely the best of the best.
Well, and the second analyst we have on board here is, of course, the illustrious Walkie. And Walkie, let's take a look, of course, as well at your thoughts coming into today. And, of course, what you believe to be some of the most interesting facts or defining moments that you've come to think about as we got to today.
Yeah, I think Magic hit it right on the head right there. There's so many storylines that were created from those first 2 qualifiers that I think are going to really play into what we see during this. Obviously, we have some great games coming up today. And if you had to mention, to me what, things I'm looking for out of these games, well, first up, you do know we're going to have the Graveyard Shift versus Starburst set right off the bat. And I think that's a tale of a little bit 2 sides there. Graveyard Shift, yeah, they qualified through the first qualifier, but they were the 4th team to qualify, and they're kind of squeaking by a very tough matchup versus Nightmare to get themselves into this qualifier, and Graveyard Shift for sure deserves it. And then on the other side, Starburst coming in from that qualifier number 2 and sweeping their way through the competition for the most part, looking real good there today, and they shouldn't miss any beats going forward in this league.
Yeah, fantastic points. And Magic, I want to get your thoughts on the qualifiers as well. Take a look at these 2 teams in particular. Graveyard Shift in the winner semis of the first qualifier, getting bumped down into the loser side of the bracket, and then had that just ballistic set 3-2 victory over Nightmare, again seen as kind of the Cinderella of that tournament. And on the opposite side of things, Starburst having a pretty easy time of it. A couple games taken off them through that journey, but able to dispatch of Nickel Heroes, Last Resort, and Nightmare respectively. Would love to see what you think about their journeys and how they might match up today.
Well, Starburst definitely has been the reigning champion for a long time in the West, right? Graveyard Shift has a lot of players who have done well. You've got Terra, who has been with the players of Kings over the long run that have put up good defense against Starburst's aggression. But at the end of the day, Graveyard Shift has a lot to prove here. They did not go through the qualifiers cleanly, and as we saw with some of the commentary before leading up to this match, they're not the favorites for this game.
Well, we do have a video coming up shortly here for Graveyard Shift. Before we do that, I do want to mention that any subscriptions or donations on InkTV Splat are going to go back into contributing to production. So if you're feeling generous, if you have the means to, that would certainly help everyone helping to make this all get put together throughout the course of this month. But as I mentioned, let's go ahead and queue up that video for Graveyard Shift to see just what we're working with today.
An incredible set, Graveyard Shift puts an end to the Cinderella story and punches their ticket into the InkTV Resurgence League.
Hello, my name is Terra and I am the captain of Graveyard Shift. I play the support and anchor role, so I'm technically a flex player, and I bring a lot of experience and stability. Obito is our support / slayer, and he has a lot of high-level experience, being the first Western European player to achieve XP 3000 in Splatoon 2. Orion is one of the best Tetras in the world and brings a different twist to our team compared to others, with most of our comps being based around him. Zeraz is another top-level European player who has been around for a long time since Freeze in Splatoon 2, and he has a great range of weapons he can play at a high standard.
Stick around, swear when we're together, heaven's on the ground. I'll do this forever, looking at you now. I can't get enough, I don't know how you did it, boy, you got me spinning.
Using one word to describe our team would be chaotic, as we try to cause a lot of problems for our opponents with the Tetra and the Viper running around and causing mayhem. However, it can be a very risky strategy due to two weapons dying quite often. Graveyard Shift's biggest strength is being able to disassemble our opponent's game plan with the fast-paced weapons such as Tetras and Viper paired together, whilst we remain stable with me and Obito following from behind.
Spinning down, head over my heart, turning inside out. Love me in the dark, looking at you now. I can't get enough when you touch me like that.
We're hoping to prove that it is possible to win with a Tetra one-trick on our team on all modes. Graveyard Shift is going to win InkTV Resurgence League, as we have a team comp that most people aren't used to fighting, and if played well can be extremely rewarding for us.
Great to get a look at some of what we're going to be seeing today out of Graveyard Shift. And Waki, I know that you have a little bit of information about part of the roster that they'll be bringing together today, those who can make it and those, of course, who cannot. But some interesting comments made in there about, for instance, the one trick that they have, as well as some of their more flexible players like Tara. And I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, starting off with your first question right there, dealing with their roster. Obviously, we saw in that video and throughout the qualifiers as well, their main roster was playing, and that included their Viper player, Zeras, that Tara mentioned. And, you know, that I think Zeras in particular, that Viper that he brings out, I think really gels with the rest of the team because, as Tara was saying, it helps them be so aggressive and create opportunities for the rest of the team to go with Zeras on that Viper and Orion on this respectively, really create those opportunities for the team. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they come out in this game here today, where they're going to be bringing out Ellis, a player who's not normally in their roster, but they have been practicing with for the past couple days. They were obviously ready for this situation. And, you know, a team like Graveyard Shift is not going to be making excuses at the end of the day. And then as far as, you know, how Tara fits in flex, as a flex player in general, I would say that it's a very interesting flex role for Tara because kind of actually similar on the other side, Ice, you know, could play those both frontline weapons or supportive weapons if needed, like Splash, but then also bring out those backline weapons and be the anchor of the team if needed. So it's a very interesting, I think, dynamic that we're going to be watching throughout this set is how Tara and Ice play those roles respectively, because they both do basically whatever their team requires of them to win the game. And I think that's a very interesting thing that we're going to be watching out here for today.
Lovely holistic analysis there. And Magic, maybe a quicker question for you here. They mentioned in their interview they're really looking to see if they can make some wins here, both in sets and in matches, with a dedicated one trick on their team. And there's, of course, separate discourse about one tricking in the high level and some adherence to the meta. Do you think it's possible, especially with the players specifically that they have on their roster?
Tetris specifically is a weapon that needs to be one-tricked, and it allows for, like Waki was saying, those opportunities, those movements. Graveyard Shift as a team is very light on their feet, and we'll get into why it's a good matchup to have that attribute, but that is going to allow them to be very quick on these modes that are like Splat Zones, like Clam Blitz, that can make these quick moves and open up those opportunities and let them sneak in some game wins and maybe even a set win.
Well, moving on to our next team, a team that needs no introduction, so much so, in fact, that we don't even have a video for them, but their names are known basically throughout the entire Western scene, that being Starburst, with their members Ice, Biscuit, Bagel, Ran. Of course, they've had Bursty substitute in from time to time. And Waki, I want to get your thoughts, of course, on their roster. What makes them so strong? And speaking of the meta as well, how they're helping to drive that aspect of the game here in the West.
Yeah, I mean, starting off with the roster in particular, I mean, this roster is pretty much second to none from top to bottom. I mean, you have possibly the best player in the West at each position that they play. Obviously, Bagel, Biscuit, Bran, and Ice. You know, those are names that we've known for so long, and how powerful each of those players are that, you know, once they started to be on the same roster in Starburst, it was kind of game over at that point. But interestingly enough, how we mentioned on the other side for Graveyard Shift, that they played with their full roster and going to be playing with the sub here today. We have to remember that Starburst qualified kind of with the sub when they brought in Bursty, and now they should be bringing Brand back in there, go-to kind of frontline captain of the team back in it, and they should be raring to go. So I think that's something to watch out for, is the dynamic of the team now that Brand is back in the lineup.
Yeah, and Magic on the bat, you know, they do drop a couple of games in the qualifier, but they look strong throughout the entirety of it. But they're going to be facing exclusively against teams that had to make the same journey as them to get to this point, both in NA and in EU. Any chance that we see any faltering or any perhaps even a chance for an upset from this matchup or throughout the entirety of the league?
They did have some upsets, but like Waki was saying, they did not have their full roster in the qualifiers. They usually do not drop games if they have a roster, if they're at their peak performance. We don't know how they're going to be shaping up tonight specifically, but the way that they play as this immovable force, this unstoppable train that is coming at you, it's gonna be hard. We're gonna have to see if Graveyard Shift can kind of be agile and sweep them off their feet and get them to falter. It's gonna be hard though. It's a very uphill battle.
Well, we've done a fair bit of discussing about the two teams that will be in match 1 out of 2 today. Of course, later we will discuss our second match between Jackpot and Nightmare. But before we do that, we have a video that will discuss the actual format of the tournament, because it's a little bit different than some of y'all may be used to. So we'll go ahead and get that video queued up. We'll share with y'all what the tournament structure is going to look like, and then we'll return back with some analysis of that.
The InkTV Resurgence League is finally here, with 8 of the best Splatoon teams that have qualified through 2 double elimination brackets so far. But what exactly does the league look like? Don't worry, we've got you covered. Based on their qualifying performance, each team is placed into one of 2 round-robin groups. That means each team has 3 different opponents they'll face during the league's regular season. The top 2 in each group will move on to the single elimination playoffs bracket at the end of the season. Each match will feature a set play format. To kick things off, a coin flip will occur to determine which team will ban away one of the 4 ranked modes from the match. The opposite team will then decide the order in which the ranked modes are played. Each mode has 3 maps, and a team needs to win 2 out of those 3 maps to take the set on that ranked mode. The team that comes away with 2 out of the 3 ranked mode set wins will be victorious in the match. Every single match will be streamed on Thursday and Friday nights over at InkTV's Twitch channel. The show will start at 6:40 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, with a ton of commentators and analysts to help break down the game and give their opinions and insights into what's actually going on. Take it from me, you won't want to miss this one, because this is our Resurgence.
Fantastic breakdown there by K-Bot, who you'll get to see a little bit later. But Waki, I want to discuss what is actually going to be affecting here in this set play format, the match that we're about to watch, because I have it on good authority that we have the results for match number 1. It looks like Starburst won the coin toss and elected to ban Rainmaker. So that will leave the other 3 modes in the following order as chosen by Graveyard Shift. We'll be starting with Splat Zones, up with Clam Blitz, and then if necessary we'll be concluding things out on tower control. Would love to hear what you think about the banning of Rainmaker as chosen by Starburst and how Graveyard Shift has allocated these modes.
I think for Starburst that was a very, very important decision, and I think they made the right one. Like you mentioned, that they only lost a handful of games, 2 during the qualifiers, and one of those actually happened to be on Rainmaker Undertow. So I think it was a wise decision for them to go out and ban that one. They did end up losing the match. I believe it was to Last Resort. Very different team than Graveyard Shift, but still, I think that shows them, or it showed them that, you know, when you're on a mode that can be as chaotic as Rainmaker can be and so fast-paced and go back and forth between the 2 teams, that maybe, you know, when you know your own style of play and how good you are together, let's play a more steady, even-keeled mode, like a Splat Zones, like a Clam Blitz. So let's just get rid of Rainmaker and leave that for another day. But today, we're going to be playing, you know, the Splat Zones, Clam Blitz, and tower control, and I think this all works out in Starburst's favor, because that second match that they lost was actually on tower control. So I think for Starburst, everything is looking good for them.
And Magic, to kind of continue Walkie's thought here on the map list, you know, if for the folks that have been following along with the 2 qualifiers heading up to this point, they know that the map and mode list that we're working with is actually quite small. I think it's just 3 maps per mode for a total of 12. How does this get juxtaposed and intersect with the set ban list here that we have for match 1?
So it's such an interesting kind of dynamic here, right? Because a lot of times different tournaments will have different map lists and different like map pools in general. But with such a small list, these players have been playing this list for the past 2 qualifiers, right? For some of them. So they know these maps inside and out at this point. We're going to be seeing a lot of different variations in their strategies because of this. And because we're seeing something like zones come up first, it's going to be a very good idea of how exactly deep these are thinking about these map lists.
And speaking of the map list, let's go ahead and get into the nitty gritty walkie here of set number 1, which is, as we mentioned, going to be Splat Zones. We're going to be starting with game 1 on Flounder Heights and are guaranteed to at least see Mako Mart played as well for Splat Zones with, if necessary, a 3rd game taking place on Hagglefish Market. How does this order shape up in terms of the Starburst versus Graveyard matchup?
I think for Starburst in general, you know, they want to play those even-keeled modes like the Splat Zones. So starting off on Flounder Heights, a map that we actually did get to see them play on stream during the qualifier, I think they got to be feeling pretty good about themselves going into this one, especially considering that they now have Brand back in the roster, who I think rounds out things for them. We saw during that entire qualifier, Bursty was mostly a splash player, and sure, Brand can do that too, but I think Brand opens up the possibilities for them to explore more options on maps such as these. So on a Flounder Heights, Brand could possibly bring out a Tri-Slosher that he was playing before it got the buffs from the Tacticooler buff. So I think there's definitely a lot of opportunity on Starburst to, you know, pull out something different than what we've seen in the qualifiers and move themselves forward towards a win here today.
And Magic, taking a look at these 3, do any of them feel particularly pendulum-esque? Do they feel like they could swing heavily one way or another? Or on the opposite side, do they feel like there's going to be a lot of neutral game presence between these 2 teams? And should Graveyard Shift be really pushing for a game 3? Is that map a key, or is one of the previous 2 maps you think maybe more important for them?
I definitely think Hagglefish is where they're going to stand the best chance, which is unfortunate that it's in their game 3, right? They really need to either make a stand on Flounder or on Mako Mart. Hagglefish is that back and forth mode, can be that pendulum-esque momentum between the 2 teams, and that is where they're probably going to be able to catch Starburst off the back foot if they are able to move into mid properly, depending on those Tetras, depending on the openings that they can find. The other map that I would have to give to them is because of how crazy and chaotic it can get. Even if Brand goes to that characteristic Tri-Slosher, which he's been using since Riptide of 2021 as a throwaway, as this pocket pick, it's going to be interesting.
Well, we're heading to the top of the hour here, so let's quickly get some predictions in for set number 1. Walkie, what do you think this one's going to shape out to be like?
I think Graveyard Shift will put up a good fight. They will do, you know, their best considering the situations for them with putting Ellis in the roster. But I think overall, Starburst should be able to win this first set in Splat Zones 2-0.
And Magic, same question over to you.
4-0 Starburst.
Getting ahead of himself even with the multiple set inclusion there. You know what? Fair enough. I like it. But again, as I mentioned, getting close to the top of the hour here, we don't want to hold y'all off any longer. So let's go ahead and start to throw it over here for match number 1 and set number 1 between these 2 teams, Graveyard Starburst. Let's head it off to K-Bot and Falco on the mic.
Welcome everybody to the opening night of the Transatlantic Splatoon. What? No, that's not it. InkTV Resurgence League, baby. We are here. My name's K-Bot. I am joined by Falco. And Falco, we have been working for months to get up to this point.
Oh my goodness, we certainly have. And of course, all the teams who have prepared for this tournament, we only have the top 8 who are left, and we know that they are ready to go ahead.
And it's going to be an exciting one. So many fireworks lined up for us across the board. Kicking it off with Starburst, this team coming in so consistent in terms of their ability to actually be able to come on in here and take care of business. And then we've got Graveyard Shift, this team that, you know, has been coming together and is looking to try to take some names here in this league.
Yeah, and they've certainly done such a good job so far in the tournaments and that they've competed in. And of course, they're facing one of the best teams that we have seen in the West in week 1. So it'll be cool to see what they can do. And of course, starting with Splat Zone's Flounder Heights. I think Starburst is going to do a really good job with this one. But of course, Graveyard Shift can definitely contend.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we would love to see more of a performance here from Graveyard Shift, but you don't mess with Starburst, folks. If you know anything here about competitive Splatoon, you know how long Starburst's reign has been, right? From North American champions back to I don't even know how many times it's been at this point. It's not even a downgrade to, you know, Graveyard Shift. That no one's really predicting in their favor. It's mostly about the fact that this Starburst roster is so consistent. And one of the things that I think will be most notable to point out with them is that it seems like in every single match, they are still sticking to this whole double crab with 2 V-splashes in their composition, Falco. And I think that's going to be a key anchoring point to keep an eye on for just how well Starburst is going to be able to control the pace of the play.
Yeah, and Waki pointed on this earlier. These are the top players with these specific weapons. It really, at this point, doesn't matter what it is. They are just so good with these weapons. Of course, they can change and adapt as they please, but like you said, they are just so ingrained to these weapons. Like you said, again, the Neo and the Vanilla Splash. Again, just getting your crab on top and mid on Splat Zone's Flounder Heights. It's going to be really hard for Graveyard Shift to break in, but that also, I'll say, doesn't put as much pressure on them too if the bar isn't set as high for them. Whereas for Starburst, they know the bar is set very high.
Starburst knows what the expectations are heading into this league. To that point about Graveyard Shift, right? They're the ones that are coming into this as the underdogs, and that probably only gives fuel to the fire. I mean, come on, you all have seen Obito on Twitter, right? Like, this guy wants to come out, wants to take names, and wants to prove his worth. And if you're going to prove your worth, this right here is the place to do it. While everyone is watching, all eyes are on this league for high-level Splatoon.
Yeah, and especially to kick off the league, literally to play the very first game too. All eyes are on you. And of course, you know, if you're, you know, across the Atlantic and it's very late for you right now too, that's going to make it even harder, just the added pressure of, okay, I had to stay up a little later, maybe on a work night or a school night, whatever you're doing. But again, these teams knew what they were signing up for, and they are ready. Every team, they're ready to tackle and take on what's in front of them.
We're starting here with game 1 on Flounder Heights, and this is known as the funky one. I mean, as a coach, right, I'm used to my players going like, I don't know what to do with this one. It's so awkward. The elevation changes, the fact that the middle of the map is more elevated than the rest of it, lead us to conditions that probably aren't going to necessarily be quite as conducive to the same linear play. But we'll see if Orion on the Tetras can help Graveyard Shift try to pick up the momentum, pick up the pace, and try to take care of both these zones.
Yeah, taking a look at these comps again, really not too surprised. And you're right, Orion there on the Tetras. So we're going to be starting off, and of course, these are the same specials that we thought both of these teams would be using. And really no surprises, K-Bot, right off the bat.
Not many surprises. I will say a few slight modifications. Of course, I wasn't expecting to see the Neo Splash come out of Starburst here, actually. Instead, sticking to that tried and true double crab. No, only opting for 1. And Obito on the 10 attack. But already, it's Graveyard Shift going 3 down. Brand's coming up with even a few more as he goes forward here. And Starburst is already in control of the zones to kick us off.
Yeah, and this is really where it's going to be hard for Graveyard Shift if they want to break in. This is what we saw Starburst do so well, just hold on top of mid and not let anybody break through. And we do see some tri-trace coming out from both teams, but look at this, Starburst not even letting anybody in zone, actually able to take that right zone. We have a 3v3 now. It's just going to be Orion who's going to be pushing over to this right zone, but unfortunately going to drop down. 2 players are now going to go down for Graveyard Shift as Starburst almost regains control of the zone.
You know, Graveyard Shift was doing a very good job of working themselves back into the pressure. You saw Orion there targeting a few individual members from Starburst that might have been even just minutely out of position. And that's all it takes at this level to try to swing this back the other direction. But of course now, Biscuit's going to find another one onto Ellis, going down himself, but finds a trade onto Terra on the backside. If Graveyard Shift didn't cap both these zones, now they might have an opportunity to do so. 3 down, and now we're going to see Orion come forward here, joining Obito, pushing Ice out of the zone. They've lost the one behind them, but it looks like the cap finally comes through. The 41-point penalty has been applied.
Yeah, and this is actually huge for Graveyard Shift. You now have momentum. You did have a player advantage with 2 players down there on Starburst. Look at this, Orion still pushing forward, getting a nice double there with the Reef Slider staying alive, but now going to be going down. Players are a little more scattered now. Graveyard's still trying to push forward. Ellis is back by the zone, just touching up some players. But Starburst, it looks like they are struggling just a little bit to find their way back in, as this lead is going to turn over to Graveyard Shift.
Graveyard Shift's hold looking pretty good here. Terra up in the Booyah Bomb as well, trying to sniff out where one of the approaches from Starburst is coming in. They have to be careful of Brand, who's moved up on that left side and might be trying to jump over the wall, but is going to get taken down in the process. Look at this, though. Orion goes back in, finds another 2. The hold's going to continue for Graveyard Shift, and Starburst is right back to the drawing board. It looks like it's the lockout here for Graveyard Shift, and just a few ticks of the timer left to go, Falco.
Oh my goodness, I don't think this is well expected for a Game 1 kicking off the league. Are they going to win this? It looks like there's going to be some contest there by Starburst, but no! Game 1 is actually going to go to Graveyard Shift. I am shocked, K-Bot.
The caster's curse, okay? Everyone was sitting here going, oh, it's going to be an 0-2. Oh, it's going to be an 0-4. 0 for 11 caster predictions earlier this afternoon, but Graveyard Shift is trying to defy those odds. They perform incredibly well here, even despite the fact that it's 1 in the morning for them over there in Europe right now, Falco.
Yeah, that was absolutely crazy because Starburst, during the first half of the game, they were just in dominant control of holding on to the zone. It wasn't until later where they could get 1 pick, maybe 2 pick, and then I think really what helped them out was Orion using that Reef Slider, getting that double, and just, you know, making Starburst scramble just a little bit as the rest of the members were able to hold on to the zone.
And here's the thing, in Ural's games, you're going to be like, okay, what does this Reef Slider even do? I can't really get any picks with it. I don't really understand what it's supposed to be doing. When you're a player like Orion, who, as they talked about on the Analyst Desk, basically one-tricks this Tetra Dualies, you are forced to figure out how this special weapon works. And Orion has found these kinds of opportunities to really try to find a way in on that Reef Slider. You see here at the end of the game, with the strikes coming out as well, it allows this opportunity for so much blue ink to be built up here for Graveyard Shift, and there's just so little that Starburst can do. Though that said, it's also a factor of Flounder heights, right? The high ground is incredibly important here, and having control for both those zones is critical there, and ultimately what gave Graveyard Shift a good chunk of the win.
Yeah, and I think when they were able to take the lead, there wasn't really an opportunity for Starburst to try and push back with a full strength. So really, that just made it very difficult. But we are going into our second game here, Splat Zone's Mako Mart. Look, Starburst is in a situation they need to win the next 2 if they want to win this set.
Now here it comes. The double crab out of Starburst is pretty much what we were kind of expecting, paired with the Tri-Slosher and Slosh Machine, not switching up much there on the side of the map. And now Obito over on the Inkzuka. This one is going to attempt to really try to sniff out those crabs before they can get a lot of pressure going.
Yeah, and I think, too, with a more flat surface on this stage rather than Thunder Heights, you have that potential to get a double with one single special usage, so that's really going to be a good choice for them. And Starburst able to take control of the zone early on as one player's down there on Graveyard Shift. Not really pushing up, but here we go. We see the Reef Slider come in once again. We see the Trizuka being pushed out, but it's not going to get any splats. 2 players now down on Starburst. Graveyard Shift is going to take control of the zone for the first time.
It looks like somebody was able to dive forward there. I imagine that was Orion building up a little bit of pressure, and Graveyard Shift is going to have the opportunity to cap both these zones. But now here comes Starburst. Watch their team play as they try to come on back in here, but no, actually, we're going to see this Crab Tank come out, take care of one, and prevent any push that Starburst was trying to get going. Of course, Brand was tactical, so we'll be back in just a moment, and still 3 specials online for Starburst, but it looks like the pressure is just continuing to keep up. The pacing for Graveyard Shift is really what they're playing with, and now with the and Bagel's going to go down as well, forced to pop the Crab Tank on the defensive side without any engagement tools for the zone.
Yeah, Orion doing a really good job just saying, hey, I'm a distraction, look at me over here, focus all your attention on me and not the zone. But finally, Starburst able to take control of the zone, giving Graveyard Shift a pretty hefty penalty of 50. But remember, this is Splat Zones, and we know what Starburst is capable of doing in Splat Zones, especially Mako Mart, as 2 players are now going to go down on Graveyard Shift, and Starburst are going to start their lockout.
Give them a little time to get warmed up, and I'm sure we'll soon see the teamwork and the prowess of Starburst that we're so used to seeing. As you saw there a little bit on that retake, but now the challenge comes through. Zuka, Crab Tank, both popped by Graveyard Shift, enables Orion to get in unnoticed, undetected, and now it's another 3-down situation for Starburst. The cap goes back to Graveyard Shift, and Starburst is still going to be back struggling here with Orion continuing to bully them on the side.
Yeah, they're putting Orion in a position where Orion needs to be just once again serving as the distraction while the rest of the players watch out for flanks. And now that's really Graveyard Shift very well as they are getting away at their penalty points. And it looks like they will still be able to hold on and throw some of their specials up there towards that tactic cooler that Starburst has laid out. And now we see one member flanking. It's going to be Brand going all the way there on the left side, trying to find an opportunity to break in. They are still alive, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. Look at that! Orion, K-Bot, what just happened?
Orion comes up from the sides, went completely undetected because Starburst didn't have any engage tools to try to actually take back the zone. It looks like they were able to find the cap, though, by that penalty, so they've got a little bit of extra time to work with here. But Graveyard Shift has been playing so well so far in terms of just being able to continue to apply that pressure, and Starburst has nothing to try to contest this zone, nothing to fully engage with their specials. That's the reason why they're struggling here. We'll see if they can try to start slowing down this game, because otherwise, Graveyard Shift might run away with this one.
Yeah, Starburst doing a really good job just timing out their specials, using one crab after another with that Booyah Bomb there as well to help alleviate and put pressure on the zone. So yes, they are going to be up right now, and this is where Starburst really needs to make a big move on their lockout. It's going to be starting with trying to figure out where Orion is and seeing where that they need to go if they want to try and take over and take the lead.
Looks like Starburst still holding on to things for just a moment. We'll see what exactly comes of this here. Trying to find the engagement here as Graveyard Shift coming back into the zone. Looks like it's going to be heavily contested there, right on top of the middle of the map. So much paint flying both directions. Graveyard doesn't want to give this away right here, but Starburst looks like they're going to hold on to the cap. 2 down, make it a 3-down situation as Ice comes up with the last one. Starburst is looking to run away with this one to find the knockout. Ice is going to pick up yet one more onto Ellis at the very end of the game, and that'll make this 1-1. We're heading to game 3 in the first set.
Yeah, that was a crazy ending there where once again Graveyard Shift turned up the heat and did so much work against Starburst, and Starburst able to come back. I know for all of us it was kind of a little difficult to see what was going on there, but Starburst able to just time their specials, get the picks when they needed to get them, and able to take control of the zone just before the game ended.
And that's the thing. If Starburst can try to get into position, if they can try to lock out their opponent and really start to go from that for the future, they'll be able to have that ability to control a lot of the pace of the game, right? But as we were seeing there for quite a bit, they're struggling to find an engagement. The Crab Tank isn't actually that good at like a hard engage, right? You really want to try to, if anything that they're going to look for, it's going to be playing off the Booyah Bomb that they're playing with right now, right? Other than that, you might try to look for your triple ink strikes or something like that. But on the other side of the map, you've got a roaring at you with a Reef Slider potentially. You've got an Inkzuka, and you've got triple Ink Strike, right? All trying to funnel down and pick apart exactly where you are on the other side of the map. So it's very difficult for Starburst to get set up, and that's exactly what we're seeing so far. But I am so excited to see this next one, Falco. We're heading to Hagglefish Market as our final map in the series, deciding our first set.
Yeah, we'll take a look at this replay here and see. This is the moment where, this is where Graveyard Shift really got all the way down as far as they could. I believe this is just before Starburst took control of the zone. Yes, and there's that double by Orion, that Reef Slider. So this is really, it was really helpful for them, but unfortunately for Graveyard Shift, Starburst was able to take control after that. But again, anytime we see a 1 or 2 double there with the Reef Slider, it's going to be good. But like you said, moving on to Game 3, Hagglefish Market, we are going to be seeing some new weapons coming out on the side of Starburst, and it looks like we are going to be seeing the Heavy come out from Ice.
Trying to pick out that range a little like out of the Starburst composition, because they really want to try to prevent players like Orion from getting in, and then try to prevent the engagement power that maybe Obito might have on that Inkzuka. If they can try to sniff out some of these shorter range weapons that Graveyard Shift is running, maybe they'll be able to maintain a little bit more consistency and maintain this pace of the game the way that they want to play it. But there it is, you see it right there. A Zuka shot to the face of the crab is not what you want to see if you're Starburst, and Graveyard Shift might have an opportunity to try to take back control of this zone. They're gonna have to clear out Bran on that flank, but but it looks like they're starting to do.
Yeah, and like you said, with the double crab, this is what Graveyard knows what they need to do. They're like, okay, we need to have a Trizuka to take down these crabs, and that's why we see it. That's how powerful it is, too. We can just see the aggression from it, and Graveyard Shift now going to be taking control of the zone just ever so slightly, but going to have two players go down on their own. It looked like a more promising situation as we do see it now. Bagel able to stay alive, just in enemy paint, but now going to go down. Terra able to touch up on the zone a little bit more, too. So Graveyard Shift back in it, no longer any penalty points. Let's see if they can get down to 62.
Are looking to try to pull a little bit of pressure away from that flank, but it looks like, well, in the meanwhile, Graveyard Shift will take control of the lead for the moment. What will Starburst attempt to engage with? The Wavebreaker goes out there trying to buy some space, and Bagel's here trying to look for a pick. They spot Orion on that far side. Orion will go down indeed, but the Booyah Bomb comes out here on top of zone, and finally Starburst is starting to move forward, capping the zone on the meanwhile, but it's going to get contested right back. They don't have any tools now. They've exhausted all of their specials that go through the zone, and this is Graveyard Shift's moment to punish. Obito goes in, not going to find much for it. They pulled the trigger, but it looks like Starburst wins the firefight. Starburst will come away, looking like the hold of this zone.
Yeah, Graveyard was doing everything they possibly could to stop that push from Starburst. But like you said, Starburst's first push, the specials didn't really come in handy too much, but it wasn't until that second time around where they charged it up and really were able to take control. Remember, Graveyard Shift still has the lead now as Starburst trying to defend it, but we do see Terra in the Crab, and then the Trizuka come. The two players are going to go down on Graveyard Shift, and Starburst able to hold on to the zone, and it looks like the lead is going to flip.
This is exactly what you wanted to see from Starburst. The breathing room, the sheer amount of space that they have with the crab tank and the heavy splatling, and even the machine getting it on that as well. They have so much of this space, and look at where Biscuit's running up now, trying to find a way underneath that canopy, looking to bully some of the members of Graveyard Shift. They're trying to spot out where Orion might be coming from potentially, and the engagement's going to try to come through. Biscuit forced to jump away, Reef Slider across the zone is going to come up with two. Ship down there for Graveyard Shift, exactly what they needed to get back in the game.
How many times will Orion get a double with the Reslider? It's literally happened in every single game that we have seen so far. Absolutely incredible. And they still have some work to do as two players are going to go down. We see Biscuit now pushing in alone there on the right side, joining up now and using their Booyah, but unfortunately going to get shredded. One of the crabs is going to have to back up, and it looks like one more on the right side is going to form. I don't think this is going to be enough for Graveyard Shift to hold on as Starburst is able to take control out on Graveyard Shift, but this zone has not been capped. 3 players down. Finally capped. There it is. So that was a really game-saving cap for Starburst at that moment.
Yeah, not quite this time, and that was all off the back of maybe Graveyard Shift even getting a little too aggressive, right? The adrenaline's running through their veins right now. They want to go forward, they want to keep building up the momentum, but Starburst able to punish that with this consistent team that we know so well. Crab Tank, Tri-Strike, Orion, all running forward through the zone, trying to find some of these members of Starburst. It doesn't quite come out to this time around. Now we see Ellis going down for Graveyard Shift. Biscuit's gonna be able to find Terra, and Starburst is coming back through. Biscuit comes to 2, now looking for another one onto Orion here, stuck in the corner, and finds that one on the trade. And it's gonna be Starburst that'll have control of this zone. Somehow Graveyard Shift needs to find another engagement.
Yeah, Biscuit coming in clutch with that pick, doing such a good job. And now it looks like there's a disconnect, but of course it's late in the game and it doesn't really matter to begin with too, as Starburst is going to be able to hold on to the zone. There's going to be one more attempt here by Graveyard to try and push in. We do see the Reef Slider come in too. Will this be enough for them to cap? And it actually is. So Graveyard's just still able to hold on, but now you're in that permanent 3v4 towards the end of the game. This is absolutely Starburst's game to lose if it comes down to that. So Graveyard Shift doing everything they possibly can to contest the zone in the next 10 seconds.
13 seconds left to go, 2 members down. This one's looking over there, unfortunately. There might have been opportunity for Graveyard Shift to find that engagement that they absolutely needed, but the disconnect is going to strike. Don't tell me that this league is going to be cursed with disconnect entire time, man. I can't handle it. But it will mean that Starburst is going to take the first set on Splatoon.
Hey, regardless of the disconnect, those 3 games that we just saw, I think shocked every single person here. They shocked everybody with how well both of these teams played. Again, I'm going to highlight Orion's Reef Slider getting a double literally on every single game that we have seen, and that's not something you see. You don't see top players dying to Reef Sliders all the time, K-Bot.
You do not, that is for sure. But of course, again, as we were talking about, a player like Orion knows these Reef Sliders, know that's going to come in. We'll see if there's an engagement that can try to come back through here for Graveyard Shift. They're down 0-1 in sets. But before we go much further in the match, we're going to send it back on over to Zach, Walkie, and Magic for a few more insights on what we just saw.
Well, thank you, K-Bot and Falco, for that fantastic first. It had just about a little bit of everything that you can think of in terms of the meta, in terms of Splatoon, and the external factors, of course, that are difficult to control at times. But Walkie, I want to hand it over to you for a more holistic and, of course, analytical breakdown of what we just saw.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Graveyard Shift from the get-go put up a much bigger fight than we all initially thought. And let's give kudos to them. They really did a lot of great work to put themselves on the map in that first game. We saw, obviously, Starburst coming out to a strong start at the beginning of that Flounder Heights Zones game. But then once, he gave the whole deck control first, never looked back and really looked dominant going into it. We saw, obviously, Falco talking about how prevalent that Reef Slider was, and just using that Reef Slider to help go in and create a lot of, space for their team and even get picks along the way was so huge for them in that first Flounder Heights game. But then even throughout the set, I feel like that kind of just dwindled down a little slight bit, and we saw more and more honestly how much this was someone to just go up here and help Orion a little bit up front. That's not he's still a great player, just not having that secondary frontline weapon to go up with really hurt them throughout that set and go towards the end.
Yeah, I think Xeris actually being in Twitch chat. And Walkie, I know you had talked about, too, the magic of how well these teams were able to do while subbing. And Magic, while it was not the 4-0 that perhaps you had anticipated, Starburst still taking the first set here. And Orion, I know that you mentioned that sort of Graveyard Shift's gameplay in particular hinged a lot around their play.
Right, exactly. And I think Starburst finally picked up on that after the Flounder Heights game and kind of realized that even during Mako Mart, you saw two of them turned around as the trip strikes were flying down and Orion was behind them. And you could see the crab was just pointing at Orion, just making sure that they could not get it back in. As soon as Orion went down, you saw the momentum of Graveyard Shift just completely shut down. And so because of that, it was really dependent on Starburst picking off Orion early and making sure that Tetris could not. And once they started doing that
Graveyard Shift was doing a very good job of working themselves back into the pressure. You saw Orion there targeting a few individual members from Starburst that might have been even just minutely out of position. And that's all it takes at this level to try to swing this back the other direction. But of course now, Vince gets to find another one onto LS, going down himself, but finds it. Ryan goes back in, finds another two. The hold's going to continue for Graveyard Shift. And Starburst is right back to the drawing board. It looks like the lock here for Graveyard Shift. And just a few ticks of the timer left to go, Falco.
Oh my! Perfection in their role. Once they got going throughout this run, I mean, looking at you've not really seen that in this replay. This was the dominant part of the game for Graveyard Shift. But I mean, yeah, looking at the ways that Starburst was able to utilize, their roles and their specials to get themselves back in was just beautiful. I mean, sometimes Orion would go into their base, and yeah, he would be able to get those picks, but not before they made the just perfect instance plays to cap that zone. And I think that really just paid off for them in the end. They knew the exact timings that needed to be necessary for them all to come and coordinate and provide their role for their team.
And real quick, before we get into predictions, is Reef Slider the secret meta, or does it have to do more so with the weapon, the main weapon itself?
Reef Slider has been surprising me recently, and if used after probably like thousands of hours of usage like Orion has, then yeah, you could start using it effectively and get into those corners, especially with the increased blast radius. Now that it has that as a secondary entry tool that guarantees it some way to actually start disrupting people and they actually, it is a very useful part of that kit. And now the entire thing is synergizing really well after those buffs. I think it is part of what is lifting Tetris into the forefront of the meta.
Well, Walkie, I know you predicted a sweep for set 1 heading into it, but after seeing set 1, are you going to stick to a similar prediction heading into set number 2, or are you going to change your mind here as we look forward to Clam Blitz?
I mean, that's a very hard decision just to think about because we saw how Starburst kind of got better throughout as the set goes. Obviously, we had that DC at the end of situation. We don't know what Graveyard Shift could have done towards the end of that game. But I think going into this next one, I have a lot more faith in what Graveyard Shift is trying to do. And I think it may actually work out even just the same or better for them going into this next one, especially going into Clam Blitz, as you mentioned there. I think if Orion's allowed to create a lot of distraction and opportunity on one side of the map, his team can then claim the ground on the other side, as well as the clams, which are so crucial during this. And if they're able to claim all those clams, then Starburst gets none. They're all focused on Orion, and by the time they know it, the entirety of mid and all the turf as well. So I think Clam Blitz, honestly, can still go in the favor of Graveyard Shift. I don't know if I'm going to predict them to win the set, but at least I think another 2-1. It'll be a close one once again.
And Magic, quickly over to you. We're going to be seeing Scorch, Gorge, and Museum to Alfonsino for sure, with the chance to see Ink Blood Art Academy if we need a Game 3. Do you think there will be a Game 3 in this instance?
This time I don't. I think Starburst is warmed up, used to Graveyard Shift's playstyle, and Clam Blitz is their mode 100% of the way. I feel like they're going to probably steamroll. I don't think we're going to see a Game 3 this time around.
All right, well, that's enough out of us. Let's stop the suspense and get into set number 2. Let's go ahead and throw it back over to K-Watt and Falco on the caster desk.
Welcome back, everybody, to the casters. This isn't really a desk, and I can't really call it a corner either. Falco, what is this?
I'm at a desk. I don't know where you are.
I'm at a standing desk. I mean, so okay. I guess we're both at desks, but that would be casters' desks, not really like the caster's desk.
Doesn't roll off the tongue.
Yeah, I don't really know what to think. Either way, of course, Clam Blitz is about to come forward here for Starburst versus Graveyard Shift. But what fireworks we saw in that last set on zones. The unfortunate truth, though, here, Falco, is that with those Clam Blitz objectives being further apart on the map, I think it's going to be difficult for Orion to find more flanks to get around to the backside of Starburst.
Right, you don't have one central location. The objective is until you're finally scoring when you have that power claim. You're right, you're going to be more spread out throughout the map, where flanks, you're always going to be looking for flanks. You're literally playing the entire map when you do play Clam Blitz. So yeah, I think, you know, what Starburst learned from that first set, getting lost, they have to watch out for not dying to a Reef Slider and having a few of their players go down. And, you know, clams, you can have lockout phases when the opponents are scoring your clams into and kind of accelerate your lead that way. But, you know, it's going to be really tricky for Graveyard Shift to win. And K-Bot, I don't know. Oh, okay, never mind. I guess you were here. You stepped out for a second.
Yeah,
but you're back. Cool. Welcome back. But yeah, I mean, I still think kind of what our analysts were saying. This is Starburst's game to win too. You know, I think they're going to do really well. But of course, what we saw in the first set, we know Graveyard Shift can contend.
Yeah, and, you know, obviously, like at this point, right, if that wasn't evidence that these teams are all close enough together, with Graveyard Shift playing at midnight in Europe and Starburst playing at 7:30 here in the United States, these teams are close enough. Throw out your seeding, throw out your expectations, and it's all going to come down to who's playing better tonight in terms of who's going to be able to take away some of these games. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen here for this Clam Blitz set. Again, we can talk so much about it, but of course, it's worthwhile to just watch it all the same. I'm anticipating we'll probably see more of this double crab come out of Starburst. They're used to running, and hey, if they're the best team, they might as well run what they think is going to be best. But of course, like we were saying, and like I was kind of alluding to there in a lot of cases, I think there are plenty of engagement tools for Graveyard Shift to try to disperse those crabs, right? We saw Obito not be afraid to go over to that splatter shot with the Trizuka to do that. And then in addition, Ellis was basically just only on that Neo Splash-O-Matic with that triple link strike. So having those tools are going to be incredibly important to look out for while you see those double crabs come out of Starburst.
Yeah, and I think too, like you said, kind of the things that can counter the crabs, you're going to have that Trizuka, which I think is going to be very key for Graveyard Shift if they want to just get a quick kill on one of the crabs so they don't have to worry about it. So that's going to be really key. And I think too, just in general with the format of this tournament, it's not something you see very often in any Splatoon tournament. You focus on one mode, you have like sets within sets that you play, so you can kind of get in that mindset. So they were in Splat Zone land before, now they're in Clam Blitz world, whatever. And you don't have to focus and you don't have to change your objective and your way of thinking so quickly. So even for Starburst, maybe they use that first game Flounder zones as a warm-up game, but you know, who knows what's going to happen as we hop into this first match of this second set.
Clam Blitz, Scorch, Gorge. What would we see come out here? An already interesting weapon composition and choices coming out. Ellis actually this time going over to that gray end zap, opting for that tacticooler, maybe opting to try to enable Orion to get in even faster across those gray.
Yeah, I think they will, and you know, once again, tactical is not something we have seen very often until recently with the with some of the patches that has happened, which gave it a buff. They gave it a pretty nice buff at that. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to see new specials come out, but like you said, Starburst once again sticking with their old reliables.
And of course, the other thing worth noting on Starburst's composition, the custom Jet Squelcher comes out here, which is a weapon we've seen rise in popularity quite a lot. Ice being one of those people to popularize this, and it's going to be all about that range. Keep Tetra at an arm's length away, as he does there just beautifully. Pretty much, though, the middle of the map is very contested, very heated. Neither team finding the full engagement, forcing the other team back, but it looks like if anyone's starting to do it, it is Starburst.
Yeah, you know, they don't have a power climb yet, and I don't think they really need to until Biscuit's going to be throwing a Booyah Bomb to try and push towards the basket, but it's not going to be enough, as it looks like some of the members from Graveyard Shift are set up pretty well on defense. We see Terra with the Crab now trying to push back, and now Terra opting to go to the right to try to take down the Crab. But you're right, look at all this map control from Starburst, as they are able to push up just a little bit. They're going to be, unfortunately, having one of the players go down, so that power claim is going to be very tricky to get. But we do see Brand getting a nice pick there, as two players are now going to be down on Graveyard Shift.
Seems like the time to strike there for Starburst just eluded them. You saw the Ink Storm come out, you saw everything start to come together, but then the second that Ink Storm went a little bit too far away, as Starburst was starting to get in position to try to make that push, Orion was there. That's exactly what you're going to have to expect with these Tetra Dualies coming out. Now it looks like Graveyard trying to come back here into the middle of the map, but again, trades in the middle. Looks like Terra trying to pop this Crab Tank, looking to try to get a little bit of damage down, and Starburst is very forced back away, but it probably won't matter too much. Here comes the engaging specials, though, out of this Graveyard Shift squad. We saw that Trizuka come out. Now we're seeing the first Power Clam find the basket. Obido comes away with one, but it's a 2-down situation. Now 2 for 2, but no other clams are really around. Tries to sneak in there. We'll reset the timer here, get a few more points on the board, but it looks like just not much more is going to come else from this. But all the same, it's only one clam scored here with halfway through the game, Falcon.
Yeah, it really is. So I would say for Starburst, they did a really good job defending that. And Obito did a very good job too, staying alive and not going down. You know, unfortunately, they weren't able to put in any claims. Some of their other players who were able to put in 3. But like we said, only down to 71. So not the push that they wanted to get, as Starburst is now trying to push back into mid. They don't really have any claims right now. They don't need to worry about that. They want to just try and get some of these picks. Win these 1v1s. We do see 2 go down. On Starburst, 3 go down. And now that is a wipeout. So look at this K-Bot. This is where Graveyard Shift really needs to capitalize.
Able to find the punish. Will they be able to find the clams coming up? You see Orion starting to dive in. Will he be able to find much of anything here? We're seeing now the Crab Tank there to further try to establish this position, but Terra instantly gets jumped on, and Starburst cleans up business like it's nothing. They might have allowed a power claim to come in, but at least they didn't allow many more points, and this one is still manageable. They've got a power clam, of course, that pity clam dropped underneath the basket, and they've got complete control of mid, already starting to engage here underneath the basket. But let's see if they come away with any picks. Orion dashes forward. He is going to get taken down by the Crab Tank. We see Ice there with the power clam, looking to try to come forward. Biscuit with the Booyah Bomb up the air. There's Ice, gonna have to go down in order to get that football in. Booyah Bomb clearing out the back. Not gonna be able to find a lot much else off of that. And with 2 members going down, it looks like this push isn't gonna be sustained by Starburst. They're gonna have to scramble within the next minute to find another power clam. Brand might get a few more points on the board here, actually able to win this. There comes the football coming in from Bagel. Brand able to pave the way for the football to come through, taking the lead here with just 50 seconds remaining.
That was at the last possible time that would have gone in. I could have sworn, I would not be surprised if that power claim just got eaten and it didn't count, just how that happens sometimes. So Starburst doing such a good job taking the lead. And I saw there that Bagel had some claims to hold on to, but just couldn't find the right opportunity to score. But they were doing such a good job just being patient, grab 2 power claims to take that score. And look at this. doing what Orion does. We do see some jumps by the basket. That's going to go in. That's actually 2 power claims. That's a wipeout. K-Bot, look at this push once again from Graveyard Shift.
But hang on, Starburst is coming right back at them. They've got 2 power clams, and I think it's going to be enough, actually, for the lead to go right back the other direction. No, actually, they need just a few more. Ice is coming back in. Will they be able to find the last few? Actually, no, Ice didn't have any. They're allowing for the jump to come in from Bagel, and Starburst is going to find the lead within the last few seconds. Overtime will actually pop here. There might have to be careful. Graveyard Shift now has 2 members roaming through mid. Clam's going to come up. Will they be able to find the jump in time? Just 10 seconds remaining. Ellis started to come in, has a power clam. Tacticooler goes out, trying to allow for that faster speed to come through. 1-for-1 trade. Ellis is in position. Goes the power clam. It's not going to be enough. They still need a few more, but now the overtime timer is extended, and Biscuit comes through to clean up. 2 to shut down the push. Orion comes in with the football with the re-slider, but it's not going to happen this time around, and Starburst is going to take game 1 of the clam set.
These players are keeping us on our toes with everything that they are doing. Oh my goodness, like just incredible pushes, incredible plays by both teams. You know, we get the score. Okay, we immediately need to push up, and just a special coordination from both of these teams. You know, unfortunately for Graveyard Shift, I think they did everything that they could have possibly done at the end. Orion, once again, doing such a good job just trying to stay alive, rushing right towards the power clam, but it wasn't going to be enough for them to score and get the lead and get the win. But K-Bot, a ton of back and forth in that game, but Starburst walking away with it on game 1.
Think about the fact that for the first 2.5 minutes of the game, only 1 power clam went into the basket, Falco. Then, only within the last 2.5 minutes of the game did we see all of this ping pong come back and forth as the team's starting to get wipeout after wipeout onto one another. This is kind of the push that started to send things back here for Starburst, but Graveyard Shift was actually able to find an opening shortly after. I mean, as you mentioned, things were just so back and forth. There's that last little power clam finding its way into the basket. Man, these teams, again, throw out your expectations. Throw out your 1 seeds and your 4 seeds. None of that matters anymore. When you're in a high-pressure environment like this, it all comes down to your mindfulness on the night to night, and Graveyard Shift is looking like they might be giving Starburst a run for their money.
Certainly, they certainly are. And like you said, it started off just this very stalemate type of game because you don't want to overextend early on. You don't want to have 2 players go down, the other team's able to get a comfortable push. So playing that conservative game in the beginning, just, you know, winning the 1v1s is kind of the route you want to go. But halfway through, then it's like, okay, all hands on deck. We're doing everything we possibly can. And both teams were able and capable of showing how well that they could do that.
Now, here's the problem for the newly Graveyard Shift recruits. If they don't win the next 2 games, this match is over and Starburst takes it. That's the way set play works now. So now, this is the elimination match, right? Or the elimination game, as I should say, for Graveyard Shift. They've got to bounce back and win the next 2 clams match. And boy, is it going to be tight either way in order to come back. Of course, we're starting now on Museum d'Alfonsino this time around, and we'll see what Graveyard Shift has prepared for us. Looks like sticking with the NZAP here in Alice's hands. Seemed to work out pretty well last time, so why not keep it?
Yeah, and we see Starburst once again using the double crab booyah and the rain to help push up some pressure. So really, no surprises with these comps, and I honestly won't be surprised if we saw what we saw in game 1 with just that kind of stalematey play. So they push up pretty early on, but they're going to be caught in some of the enemy ink. 2 players are actually going to be going down on Starburst now. 3 players down, and uh-oh, look at this. This is going to be a really potentially a good push from Graveyard Shift, which is so early on, though. I don't know if they'll really have the claim economy for it.
That's the engagement potential, though, from Graveyard Shift. The second that you get the Tacticooler down, and the second that you've got a Trizuka up on the map along with Orion barreling forward, you're going to be able to just push around your opponents, and if they're not careful and they're not expecting it, they are going to go down. Early points on the board here for Graveyard Shift, but of course, that is not going to be the final score, and Starburst will have plenty of opportunities to try to come back here, but now Orion being pesky on this side, going to distract Biscuit for a while and allow Obito to come back up. But that's the other thing here. Obito is playing an incredibly active role in all of this. You see, now going for fights and coming away with that 2v1 victory right there in the middle of the map. Obito is playing so well in terms of capitalizing on the space that Orion has generated with these Tetris.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, and they, like, some situations where they don't even need to do it just based on how well they have the map control contained. And now Graveyard Shift able to get some more clams as they're trying to push forward, not even letting Starburst really drop down at any possible position. Terror there using the crab in mid, just making sure none of these players are dropping. We're going to see that reslider once again. Looks like they are going to try a reslider jump. 2 power clamps coming in, and it looks like both are going to be scored. 2 players are now going to be going down, so you make that push go from 68 to 44 with a few of your players going down. This is what needs to happen for Graveyard Shift, but look at this push. Oh, I thought they were going to go for it. Ice was hinting at it. Ice really wanted to jump over and get that pick and try and push up with the clams, but not quite yet. But I think now is going to be the opportunity for that K-Bot.
Yeah, the real question is, if you go for that push, are you going to be able to stabilize right afterwards? And the answer is kind of. They're able to slow down the push from Starburst here, and Starburst doesn't seem like they're getting all that they came for. Now the crab tank goes out, but they're not going to be able to get back on top of that flat area, which is going to be critical for them. All that said, though, it's still only within a 40-point game. That's 2 power clams, which is virtually nothing here. Clamblitz Falco. So going to be interesting. And of course, Starburst here actually has done a good job of maintaining this pressure on the opponent's side of the map. Now they've got 2 power clams, 1 going in, 1 back at spawn that I imagine will jump in just a moment. And Graveyard Shift is going to have a difficult time trying to clear them out.
Yeah, like you said, K-Bot, you know, Starburst, the first time they pushed in, they really didn't let go of any of the map control that they had up here on Graveyard Shift's side, and they were able to stay alive, but unfortunately for them, they couldn't get the lead at that moment. But look, I don't think they're done yet based on the map control. Well, they are winning these 1v1s.
And it looks like these pushes are happening very fast, right? I don't expect any team to start generating up all of these power clams and then start to go for this. No, they want the map control underneath their opponent's basket and enabling these jump-ins. That's why you see Biscuit throw the Bio Bomb down, right? Trying to catch off some of these members, preventing Graveyard Shift from actually getting back into mid and maybe trying to change the tides of things here. While Biscuit goes down, the crab tank is still out here for Starburst in order to try to continue to have this presence on the opponent's side of the map. Now it finds a few more picks, and this is exactly what Starburst wants to do. Cycle these crabs around, things out, utilize the range, and keep things at an arm's distance. Another football's going to find it here, and Starburst might try to go for the knockout now. Rand's looking for a few more clams to come on up here, and Bagel's got a trail following him, is going to get taken down, but now that allows the distraction to come on back in from the other side of Plat, and Starburst are going to take the first match of the InkTV Resurgence League.
Game, set, match. Starburst is going to win it with that one. A very dominant performance there. You know, Graveyard Shift, they did have plenty of opportunities where they were able to push up and score. Actually, the first team to score pretty early onto the game, too. So a very impressive push from their side. But I think really what Starburst did so well, they didn't even need to score in certain situations. They could just kind of hang out at mid and make sure that Graveyard Shift couldn't push forward. And they did that for a little bit of the match, but then towards the end, when they were getting those picks, they were like, you know what, we're just going to push in. We're just going to get this knockout.
And look, what did I say, right? It's going to be more difficult to flank around and get behind Starburst because they're trying to play on some of those clam blitz things. You see that lockout potential here at the very end of the game. We saw that crab tank continually get used by Starburst, and it just enables them to keep this presence on the opponent's side of the map. This is exactly the Starburst gameplay, and it was this time around the Graveyard Shift didn't really have an answer, though I say that we actually didn't see anyone drop over to that far right side behind them anyway. So seems like things were able to be locked down there by Starburst at the very end of that, and they will come away victorious for that match. But of course, we've got another match plan, folks. So don't go anywhere, because now we're going to send it over to our analyst desk to break down the last set and preview the next match we've got coming up tonight. You won't want to miss it.
Dutiful as always. Thank you so much, K-Bot and Falco. Fantastic first match here as it concludes with Starburst taking 2-0 in their victory. And Walkie, of course, I want to throw it back to you. Let's go ahead and just get a roundup of what we saw in that second set, the entire match as well.
Walkie, I think you're muted.
I apologize. But yeah, back to what I was saying for the stream now. But I think the story of the day for Graveyard Shift was that they came with a good plan. And we saw that from a lot of the executed plays that they were bringing out. Obviously, I think all three of us watching on the side, we mentioned, when Orion went in with that reef slider, his teammates didn't waste a second jumping in, knew exactly what they wanted to do with that reef slider. Yeah, Orion was going to go down. They were probably all going to go down. But at the end of the day, they were going to get the 40 points that they wanted. And that's what they got out of that push. But on the other side, Starburst was able to take advantage of all those types of plays that they were making, because I think this goes back to that Splatoon 2 kind of, baller jump in. Yeah, you're the points, but you're probably going to wipe as well. And that lets Starburst just claim all the points that they want going back the other end. They're going to have all the clam spawns. They're going to have all the turf. And then they overwhelm you with those specials that we saw throughout the entire match. Obviously, we saw, I think it was Bagel always in the mid with the crab tank. And they just didn't really have an answer for that on the defensive end. Yeah, I think Graveyard Shift had a great offense, but on defense, that's where they kind of lacked. And I think that was really the story of the day, at least on Clam Blitz.
Yeah, and to carry that point forward, I think, Magic, you had some thoughts in particular about the Walkie just mentioned there, like the reef slider being used as sort of the sacrificial lamb to get the rest of your team to jump in, especially if you're holding on to multiple power clams. What can you say about that set in particular and how strong Starburst showed up for that mode?
You can see it in the Scorch Gorge game. When Graveyard Shift got pushes going, it's not like they gave up the entire house, or at least they had a lot of time to get back into the map mode, or they had Ellis back on that end zap that was painting in the backfield, constantly putting pressure on Starburst, even when they were alone. But that wasn't the case, especially during that museum game. As soon as they sent that reef slider in, that's when you allow Starburst to build their momentum and become that train that is going to come at you. And that's not something that you can play around with when you're going against Starburst. You have to keep cutting off their momentum. You have to keep shoving them off balance at every chance that you get. If you take that big swing and then you don't have anywhere left to step, you're not going to be able to put up any much more of a fight. And that's ultimately what decided the set. You can see it was working so better on Scorch Gorge, but in Museum, once they let it go, it was Starburst game the entire time.
And Walkie, speaking of the fights that got put in during that set, we saw a lot of lead changes back and forth, and the weapon compositions themselves, we got to see Ice on that custom jet. We also saw Ellis on the NZAP 85, which is not a weapon that we've seen a ton of, especially prior to this meta coming into play today. Do you think it helped make a difference, and was the strategy there for Graveyard Shift, even though the results were not necessarily so?
I think they picked it because they had some type of strategy with Ellis filling in for the week. I think the thing to watch out for with them was, I mentioned it earlier, they didn't have the secondary front line who would always go in because theirs is not available. But they decided, we do have this player who's great at playing a supportive role. We saw him on the Splash Neo earlier in those first sets, and now we saw him busting out the end zap. And I think the thought there was, hey, we might not be able to always be there with Orion up front, but maybe if we get the jumps back in with the tacticoolers, maybe help Orion and prolong our pushes as much as possible. And I think that was their strategy going into it. Whether it worked or not, I don't think at the end of the day you can say that it really worked for them. Obviously going down 0-2 in the set. And then also, I think you could also see it from just how the pushes planned out themselves. Every time they scored, they immediately got wiped, and that was the end of the push. There was no prolonged thing. And I think that there was a juxtaposition between what they wanted to do and what they were doing. They wanted to use those reef sliders to jump in, but as I mentioned, you're going to get wiped. Then that means the tacticoolers at that point because nobody's there to jump into.
Yeah, tough to go entirely by the scoreboard on this one, especially in a best of 3 for that set. And Magic, I have to ask, do you think, or did you notice any pivoting points, any major turning points in that set, or was it basically Starburst the entire way through, just with a few bumps in the road?
I'd think at some point during Scorch Gorge, the flip kind of switched, right? Because you could see that even Graveyard Shift was putting on a lot of good pressure during those first two, really. And then, they kind of started going, okay, we can see how this whole tacticooler play is playing out. And then Biscuit with the Booyah Bombs, which is something that I really want to point out, was so crucial this entire set. Having those Booyahs at the right time, keeping himself alive, using that sloshing machine to keep moving forward and be that guard for his team, that vanguard, was so important. And I think that's what ultimately did them in, was once Biscuit really started taking that step forward.
Well, as we're waiting for a potential player interview with a member of Starburst here, I think Magic's point is a great segue into a player of the match for this match between Starburst and Graveyard Shift. Walkie, if you had to pick one between these two teams, whether on the winning side or losing time, who would you pick and why?
That's a hard one because I think all of us are kind of drawn to Orion on Graveyard Shift, but they're on the losing side of this one. And then on the other end, it was really a team effort. I don't know if I can really blame it on one player for their success on that one. But I mean, I'll just go over what we saw. I think if I had to give somebody on a Clam Blitz who was making a big difference, it would be Ice. The custom Jet Scorcher and the Mists, I think, really did stop a lot of their pushes. So I'm going to give it to Ice at the end of the day.
And Magic, I have a feeling I might know the answer to yours, but let's go ahead and hear it. Who is your player of the match?
Definitely Biscuit. I mean, even during the zone sets, you could tell that machine really allowed them to open up so many opportunities, such well-placed Booyah Bombs, and being that opener for Starburst to make sure that they had those opportunities and could keep that momentum going. Important. So I give it to Biscuit.
Well, and while we're waiting here, let's take a brief look again at the format. Now, this is the first time that we've actually gotten to see this format play out, where it is a best of 3 sets, and within each set is a best of 3, where the coin flip winning team, in that case Starburst, was able to pick the mode that was banned that would not be played, and the loser of the coin flip got to go through with the next part. I guess we'll actually talk about that in a second here, maybe after the break here, because it does look like our player interview is ready. So let's go ahead and throw it back to our casters for a player interview with a member of Starburst.
Hello there, everybody, and welcome back. We are joined in the disembodied voice by Bran, who is going to be joining us. Bran, you looked a little shaky there, a lot more shaky than folks were expecting. What happened there?
Can you guys hear me fine?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure because there's like a little red mute icon. Started practicing again recently. Took a little break after PAX, so it's been a little bit shaky. Not the greatest set from us. Obviously, everyone's seen better. But we turned it around at the end, started to look like our old selves in the last few games, and got the dub.
Yeah, and Brian, I mean, you are a player. You missed the qualifiers, and you're coming into this tournament with 7 of the best teams that are going to be playing. How did you feel at the start of today compared to how you're feeling right now?
I wasn't too worried. Obviously, we play the strongest opponents later. Like, we play AR last week, I know, and then we play, I think, next week at some point. So I wasn't too worried or anything, but I definitely had to personally de-rust a bit after not practicing with my team. They had Bursty filling in for me this weekend, and then yeah, that's it.
All right, so it looked like a little bit there. Of course, you talk a little bit about starting to stabilize things and, coming into your true form over the course of those games that you played tonight. Can you walk me through a little bit about, were you all thinking about making any adaptations to the way Graveyard Shift was playing, or were you just trying to work on synergizing better? Walk me through that thought process a little.
We've changed some things from team to team, but with like Graveyard, Last Resort, they both play like those quick respawn fast comps, so just shutting down that person that is holding forward constantly, dying 15 times a game is the key, because they're permanently only 3 alive if they don't have Orion holding forward in our spawn the entire game.
And Brand, you alluded to this earlier. You mentioned you are playing Penguin next week. What is one thing that you're going to try and practice or look forward to for facing them?
That's a hard one. I have no idea who anyone on that team is, but we'll get to see that over the course of the league, and that's why we have this league to showcase some upcoming talent. So I may look into a few of their games from the qualifier to see what they do, because I have no idea, but I'm looking forward to the match.
That's right. All right. Well, thank you, Bran, so much for talking to us. You got any other shout outs or anything special to say here?
Shout out InkTV.
Shout out InkTV. All right, there we go. We're now going to send it back over to our analysts, who are going to make sure that they can break down a little bit left of what we've got out of that last set. And then, of course, preview our next match of the evening between Jackpot and Nightmare.